We've got dough. So yesterday it did not rise by 4 o'clock. Around 6 o'clock it had risen pretty well, but by then it was too dark to film. So, because I don't use recipes, I just left it overnight. And this is what we've got. It has nearly filled the bowl. I feel like this circle is the first rise and this is the second, as it just kept rising overnight. So if I don't take care of this, it's going to take over the whole valley and I'll make a movie of it. I haven't done the second rise. What I need to do is punch it down and then put it into a ball and pull donuts off of it and let them rise in donut shape. But before I do that, I have to stoke up the fire. And I have to get the lard in the Dutch oven and get it heating up. I didn't realize how very little lard I've got, so we'll see. I may have to cook just one at a time or two at a time. The benefits of making donuts, they don't have to be a breakfast. Wait, they don't have to be a dessert. We think of donuts as a dessert, but it can just be an alternate way of cooking bread. You can make them whole wheat, you don't have to add sugar, and then you just cook them in oil, which if you're not against fat for your diet, it adds a little bit of fat, so it's not just a bunch of carbohydrates. And it also gives you a way to cook bread without having to worry about an oven and getting the proper heat so that you don't burn the bottom and leave the top uncooked. I'm speaking from experience. So that's why sometimes it's nice to just fry the bread, deep fry the bread, rather than making donuts and rather than baking bread. So I'm not really gonna knead right now. And if you don't like it, you could pick out these hard flakes that have grown on top. Put them in there for your sourdough starter to feed off of. Or start a new starter with this, with the crust on this risen bread. But I kind of like it. That's one of the features of artisan bread, by the way. So, now you just go to the work of making donut circles. Now there's a couple ways I've figured out to do it. You can stretch them out like this and attach them on the ends if your dough is sufficiently sticky. And you want them to be fairly thin throughout because they will puff up as they cook. And you also want them to cook quickly. If they're too thick, then they might take too long and then they soak up too much fat. Another way that you can shape your donuts is just pull off a little piece and then make the donut hole in the middle. And stretch and shape, stretch and shape. I think this is my go-to that I've come up with. I just go with the fastest one. If you want it to get fancy, I guess I need to lightly flour my fingertips. There's a fancy type you can do where you roll it out. This one looks like it's working pretty well. So this is a cool little twist, make it look nice, but I don't have luck in the deep frying part of it. It always just kind of twists up, but maybe you can figure it out better than I can. So you cross it over at about 1/3 of the way. Take one side and just start wrapping it around. The goal is to meet up halfway. So you wrap that halfway, wrap this one, and then you have those, stick those together. So if you practice that, or if you're just better at it than me, you end up with some nice twisty donuts. To me, it's just pointless. It doesn't taste any better. It just takes longer. And like I said, mine don't really turn out that pretty anyway, so might as well just go with fast and effective. And now, I lay these out in order so that this one has time to rise, and that way I'm always feeding the oil with the one that I did longest time ago, so that it has the most time to rise. It'll also rise while you're cooking it, so it's not a real big matter of importance at this point to give it a certain time to rise. The normal bread recipe, they say it takes about 30 minutes for a second rise. With sourdough, I find it takes, if I remember right, 2 or 3 hours. That one's not very even. It looks like it ate a mouse. But you know what? I think I'm just going to take this apart and make 2 of them. Bam. So the second rise is taking place as we speak and as we make donuts. And by the time I get to the last donut shaping, the first one should be ready, and hopefully the oil will be ready. Alright, so the donuts are almost all shaped now. It's time that we can check on the oil. So the way to tell if your oil is ready is put a couple drops in it. That should have popped up a little faster, so it could be hotter. Now the thing about the oil, it's really important. If it's not hot enough, your donuts will soak up too much oil and make them really heavy. And if you're like me, then you don't feel good. They don't even taste as good. If it's too hot, then naturally it'll cook too fast on the outside and leave it uncooked on the inside. So it's important to get a good hot temperature, but not too hot, and nice thin donuts so they can cook through, and then that helps in turning them out really well. What I can do is thin it out just a little bit. Make sure my donut's nice and thin. It should float right away too. So this one's not shaping up to turn out the best. Well, my fire's still heating up, so hopefully this next one will be better. Also keep in mind, if you got a little bit of oil like I have, and you had room for 4 donuts, putting all those donuts in at the same time cools down the oil. So just always be mindful of the temperature of your oil, because that's what will really make or break the end product. Alright, I'm down to the last one, and then it's time to eat and drink coffee. Now, we're dealing with hot oil here, so don't do like I did and learn the hard way. Flour up your fingertips, and that way when you lay it down, it doesn't stick and then splash and get... So there we have it. Home cultivated yeast donuts that could be made out on a camping trip if you have enough time. I found that the blueberry yeast does create a little bit of a flavor. That's why I don't use it as my go-to for bread. I've resorted to sourdough for my daily normal bread. And that's why I thought these would make good donuts, which they do. And it's not such a strong flavor that if you put a chocolate glaze on top, that it would be competing with it. It's just a subtle one, and so that's the route that I've gone. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to field them in the comments. If you have more questions, you're welcome to follow me on Facebook and send me a message on Messenger or on Instagram. I try to stay active on those, but less so now that I don't have as much data on my cell phone plan as I used to. Hope this has been helpful. I'm really excited. I never thought I'd be making donuts that rival with any donuts that I've bought anywhere else. And in fact, I kind of prefer mine because they're not so sweet. I don't like to eat too much sugar. So, happy that this is working out, and I'm happy to share it with you guys. Take care, and I'm going to go enjoy some coffee and donuts.
I told my babe Texas is a long way to go, but she said she wants to be